Dude, I am definitely going to be playing this game over and over again, for sure. Guys, I played the Harvestella demo and I gotta say, I'm not impressed. Now before you go ahead and leave the video or leave it a dislike, please do hear me out. This is my experience on the demo itself. There are a couple of good things in here which I do want to share. However, I feel like the point of a demo is to demonstrate, pretty good, the point of the game and how it's going to play at its full release. If I played this demo and didn't know anything else about the game, would I get a good first impression of this game? No, I wouldn't. But before we go ahead and get into the negatives, let's go ahead and get into the positive, what worked well in this demo, and then we'll get into the negatives and what they could do to improve this demo overall. So the positives really quickly. The soundtrack was great. Visually, the game looked fantastic for the Switch. It did have a couple of frame drops here and there, but nothing too bad in its overall performance. The world was really interesting and really captured my attention, and even more so, the story was quite interesting too, to the small part that I was actually exposed to. In terms of positives, that's basically all that I have. It is a short demo to be sure, but from the short time I played, that's basically the positives that I got out of it. Let's now move into the cons. So firstly, the dialogue does not offer a choice. Most options are basically the same outcome, just reworded differently. And by the end of my 2-hour play, I was skipping over dialogue because it's just walls upon walls of text, most of which are fairly tedious to read. Now, one of the biggest issues I had in this game is the time mechanic. Time absolutely flies in this game, and it's not in a good way. Similar to Stardew Valley, you are always on a constant timer, and once you reach a certain point, you will faint. In this game, it's midnight, so you get a shorter day than what you do in Stardew Valley, and just look at this. Look at it! When you craft in the game, certain items take a particular amount of time to actually craft. Makes sense. Now what happens in this demo is that it doesn't make you wait that amount of time in the in-game time. What it actually does is that it propels you forward that amount of time. So let's say, for example, one item takes 1 hour to craft. Instead of you being allowed to walk around and do other things within that 1 hour in-game time, it actually just fast forwards you 1 hour in time and says, here you go, here's your item. Now the next immediate thought that I had was, well, okay, obviously items are going to get more complex in the game. What if certain items take 5 to 6 hours to actually craft? Does that mean that we're going to lose 5 to 6 hours in an already short day? I really hope that this is a feature just present in the demo and not in the full release, because if this makes it into the full game release, geez, crafting is going to be one of the worst features of this game. And it really kind of punishes the player for crafting items instead of actually going out and doing other things like resource gathering, talking to NPCs and all that sort of stuff. You lose that chunk of time in the day just because you wanted to craft an item. It kind of feels like a big sacrifice with no real reward. But that's not even the biggest problem when it comes to the time sinking in this game. Yes, fast forwarding you for crafting an item through time is annoying, but there's something that eats away time even quicker. So what could possibly take up more time? Well, when you go into the Overworld, it is a ridiculously accelerated time sink. Now in a game like this where you're going to be exploring and walking through the Overworld, you would hope that the time sinking isn't too bad when you're actually in the Overworld. Some people might actually hope that it actually stops the time counter itself. No, this game does the complete opposite and sinks it at a ridiculously accelerated rate. Look at this, I did some experiments on my stream and look at how ridiculous these numbers are. Now I went to the Overworld and in 8 seconds, just in 8 seconds that I was in the Overworld, the time went from 4:20 p.m. to 6 p.m. That is 1 hour and 14 minutes of in-game time that passed in 8 real-life seconds in the Overworld. There is nothing that accelerates your time faster in the game than this. And as I said before, you're going to be going into this overworld quite often, and I really hope that this is a feature that is changed at the full release, because if you have a scale where every 8 seconds, 1 hour and 40 minutes pass in the overworld, what can you do in this game? Unless there's a fast travel mechanic to get you from place to place, you're going to be wasting entire days just trying to walk through the overworld. Now, I felt completely punished by just trying to get into the overworld. I was trying to get to a few different locations, a couple of times where I needed to get resources, sometimes where there's a mission, but I knew that if I go into the overworld, I needed to be on and know exactly where I'm going. There was no room for exploring, and I just felt pressured and punished the whole way through just because of how quickly those time sinks in that overworld. Pair that with the already very early end of the day where the day ends at midnight and you'll pass out. It just creates such a pressured system in a game that's, I don't think, designed to be like that. It's Harvestella. It's meant to be a farming life sim with a bit of combat. It's not meant to have this much pressure. And it just felt like the game was stealing one of my most valuable resources from me, my time. Again, this might change in the full demo, where they might slow down how much time sinks in the game. But again, the whole point of the demo is to actually demonstrate what the game will play like upon its full release. I don't understand why you would go ahead and change the time sinking mechanics to give that impression to players in the demo. Moving on to the combat in this game is very lackluster and very just weak. It feels very tacked on, very basic, and they don't give you options to choose your class or job. They give you the fighter class, and it's just a generic fighting with a sword. You have a basic weapon, and that's basically it. There is an attack button, and you'll eventually unlock one special attack. In this case, was a fire attack. It's a very basic system that leaves a lot to be desired. Now, at the current time of this demo, they do unlock an evade kind of thing, but it's basically just their dodge, which is, hey, run faster away from enemies. There's no evade or actual dodging or rolling, and this quicker running mechanic just eats into your stamina, which is already a very finite and valuable resource. What this means that if you wanted to go ahead and dodge enemy attacks, it's just run out of the way. It just feels very basic, and it needs to be finessed a lot more. Now, as I said before, you are locked to the fighter class or job. I will get more into that later on, but it would be nice to see a bit more of a choice given to players to try out different playstyles, because if you didn't research this game before getting into the demo, one might only assume that there is only the fighter class and you can build that skill tree up from there. Now, speaking of lackluster and kind of feeling like weak tacked on mechanics, let's talk about the farming. It is disappointing to say that in a game that is self-described as a life sim, Harvestella, where you have harvest in the name, that the farming mechanic just feels like a tacked on afterthought. The farming and harvesting was advertised as being one of the calling cards to this game. However, this game does not feel like a life or farming sim at all. The game feels quite suited actually in its storytelling, crafting and combat that's often found in JRPGs. The farming side of this game just felt like an afterthought just to try to capitalize on the growing success and popularity of the farming sim genre. It felt clunky, nothing overtly wrong with it, but basically it's been done better before in many other games, and this again was one of this game's biggest draw cards. If this is a new life and farming sim game and the farming feels mediocre, then they haven't done their job of achieving its goals that they set out to achieve. Now, in the demo, again, I'm hoping or assuming this will change in the full release, but the resources were very finite. This means that you had to go to different areas in the map to get the particular resources that you were after. For me, I was trying to craft a hammer and I needed hard stone. That means I had to go into the overworld to go to another region, which obviously meant my time was just taken away from me, and there wasn't enough of the hard stones in each area to get the amount that I needed for a hammer. This means that my resource gathering had to be spread over a couple of days just so I can make something as basic as a hammer. Now, given how much time is taken away from you in the overworld, I was immediately discouraged from actually going out and venturing to make my hammer until I knew that I could do it at the start of the day and actually have a little bit more time to do other things in my day as well. And it really made me question the worth of building this hammer in the demo, making your players question if it's even worth wasting a day for a basic item such as a hammer is not the line of thinking you want your players to be going down, especially in a demo that's designed to get your players hyped. So that's a lot of complaining about the demo. There was issues with the crafting, the resource gathering, the time syncing, the combat feeling tacked on, and the farming, which was pretty average. But there's no sense in complaining if I don't have any solutions to offer. So here's how I would go ahead and make the demo improved to get more people hyped about the game. Now do keep in mind that things will be added, taken out, changed or amended at the full release of this game. There's obviously a lot more features and a lot more fleshed out in the full release, but here's how I would make the demo better. For one, I would give the players a realistic perception as to how the game will be played upon the full release. If the time doesn't move that fast, especially in the overworld in the full real game, it shouldn't have been in this demo. Now, if time actually does move that quickly in the real game and they don't change that, God help us all. The next thing I do is I'd give players a choice of what class they want to play. In the game, as I said before, you're only given the option to play as the fighter class or job. And had I not done any other research in the game, I wouldn't have thought that there were other classes to play as. Yet there are other classes that have been confirmed, like the Shadow Walker, which is a twin blade wielder. There's a Mage, which is a long ranged attack, and also a Skylancer, which is an AoE attacker. There are also other classes or jobs that will be added apparently, but if this is a player's first experience in this game's demo, they might not even know about these other classes existing. The next thing I do is not to force players to resource gather for such insignificant items such as a basic tool or a hammer. Start us off with the tools already in our inventory so we can just get into the meat of the game and work our way through the main game mechanics. So I started this demo feeling pretty optimistic, bright and wide-eyed, hoping for a unique take on the life and farming sim genre. I left the demo feeling annoyed, disappointed and let down at the promise that this game had made. I felt punished with constant time sinks, berated by annoying roadblocks that prevented progression on the most menial things like building a hammer, and I grew tired of the walls of text. I do sincerely hope that most of the mechanics that I had issues with in the game are at least in some way changed or improved for the final release. If not, I can see this game being dead on arrival. But guys, let me know your thoughts on Harvestella. Have you played the demo? Did you have a different experience to me? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you don't mind, could you please leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel? That'd be greatly appreciated. But that's all for today's video, guys. I will see you in the next one. Did that, it says 10 minutes. Did that just fast forward our in-game clock 10 minutes? To give that to us instantly? I swear that that is so dumb. That is so dumb. Fuck.